Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 344 of the Assorted podcast. The second of the podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me tonight, Aaron Paulette. How you doing, Aaron?
Wow. Okay. Took me by surprise. Well done. Thank you.
By the way, I warned you. But we had the show in Atlanta, so you had that 1 week to forget about it. You're like, these are getting way too long.
You're correct. I absolutely did forget about it.
To the listeners at home, Aaron Paulette is in fact the greatest hostess of all time, and it's quite amazing.
Well, I mean, I've already told you what's going on in my life. I have no need to repeat it and get emotional. I have no idea if it's going to show up on a blooper reel or not. I mean, it's not going to hurt my feelings if you do. But
I'll just say only the very, very tail end of it.
Okay, sure. But yeah, it's not worth talking about here and listening to me get all emotional and cry and things like that. So, nevertheless, she persisted. So that's how I'm doing. How are you, Weer'd?
I'm doing much better. I'm finally caught up from Atlanta.
Oh, yes, the classic. I need a vacation to recover from my vacation.
Yes, yeah. Because I left on a Thursday, and all that. So it was a short week going into it, and then it was a very, very busy weekend with the unexpected bit of the fact that I got out of the house a little bit late in Atlanta, and ended up arriving at the airport I need to be at the airport by this time. So it was one of those like, okay, I'm cutting it a little close, but I'm still there. Got to the security line. It was really long. Okay, this is making me a little bit more nervous, but I think we're going to be okay. Got through security, looked at my watch. Good. You know what? Actually, we're doing pretty darn good. And then furthermore, the security guy just waved me through the metal detector, and I'm like, all right, this is looking up. And then my bag got flagged, and the guy
because you were flying with the gun and you checked it or not?
Nope. I was I didn't. Oddball lent me the dirtiest SIG P365. I went to do a press check to make sure there was a round chambered in it, and I think one of his cats fell out of the dust cover.
That reminds me, and I know you're still trying to tell the airport story, but I saw a picture of you and a gun in some sort of carry case / man purse, something or other, and I wanted more information on that.
Yes, that is... I don't know how much I'm at liberty to say, because that is a prototype from somebody, but it's probably a prototype that will never go through because it's an answer to a question nobody asked.
And what question would that be?
The question is, should I have a gun concealed on my person in an off-body carry fashion that doesn't look like it's a concealed carry rig? Because essentially it's like a little documents pouch sort of thing, but inside the documents pouch is a metal case with a hidden button that opens up a spring-loaded door that reveals a Glock 19. And it's interesting, and supposedly second or third hand knowledge, the creator of this suggested, it would be good for like a VIP group, and the fact that one person would look possibly like a reporter or a stenographer or somebody that's traveling with the group but is not part of the security detail, but they are armed. But yeah, it's big, heavy, and weird. But Oddball brought it as here, Weer'd, this is what you can carry since you didn't bring a gun. And I went, no. And then he offered me a shoulder holster with a Walther PPK, which I note which is not a bad gun. And actually, Oddball's Walther's pretty darn good as far as PPKs go. I've definitely handled some that are a lot rougher than that one. But it is a gun that really was the pinnacle of concealed carry in like 1972. Yeah, but I ended up. Then he said, "I got a 365 as well." I'm like, "All right, this is one of my daily carry guns. I will take that one."
All right, so back to the story.
Yes.
You were in Atlanta airport. You were doing okay, and then there was a problem with your bag.
Yep. I didn't check a bag, which is also good because if I had to check a bag, I for sure think it was going to go far worse. But yeah. So I had a duffel bag and a backpack with me. Both of them got set into the naughty lane at the TSA checkpoint, and the TSA guy brought it over, looked at them, was looking at the file that gets spit out by the X-ray machine, and's like, I can't tell what caused these to be flagged. I'll put them back. I said, my flight is leaving in 15 minutes. He says, you'll be fine. This is foreshadowing.
Weer'd was, in fact, not fine.
No. Put them back in. They went back. They both got rejected. He ended up only looking in my duffel bag, and it was specifically for my business cards. If any listener knows what it is about boxes of cards that is upsetting to X-ray detectors, I'm all ears, because like pre 9/11 in like the 90s, I was flying with my Magic the Gathering cards and my bag got flagged and searched.
Well, see, I don't know where I get this from, and I might be mistaken, but I want to say that like the composition and shape of the business cards, and they're organic and dense and whatever, might be similar to C4. Yeah,
that's as I was talking with Oddball earlier today about that, is about, because he's like, I don't understand that. And I said, it's either one of two things. Either it has the same density of something bad like explosives, or on the other hand, it also could be that they're so heavy and dense that they are completely X-ray opaque, and therefore would look like something that someone might design, like a lead-lined box to hide a firearm or a knife or something in. So
I think that one's less likely.
Yeah. So I don't know, but either way, they had to look at my cards, got my bag. Had not realized at this point in time, I'd forgotten that I'd thrown my phone into my backpack just to get it tucked away nicely. And that's where my boarding pass was on, and was just like, where's my phone? Had to dig through, find it. Now I realized I have like less than 10 minutes to get to my gate. And so I start running. And Weer'd is not a runner. And Weer'd is especially not a runner carrying a duffel bag and a backpack.
Weer'd, natural sprinter over short distances.
I mean, not even. Not even.
Well, see, I was quoting that line from Gimli.
Yes.
In the Fellowship of the Ring.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Good old Gimli. He was doing the best that he could. And I was doing the best that I could. And I quickly learned that my childhood exercise-induced asthma still exists. I'm just too smart to induce exercise-induced asthma. And I also almost, but did not quite blow out my Achilles. My Achilles said some very, very bad things to me, and I dialed it back. And I am thankful because I did miss my flight, but I'm glad that to ride a flight with a ruptured Achilles tendon and get home 8 hours earlier is not necessarily where I want to be. And so
no,
it's mostly okay now a week later. But yeah, so that was my day, and I just camped out in the Atlanta airport. I was texted with the guys who were like, yeah, you can come back and we can hang out for a little bit. And I'm like, I'm too gun shy. I do not want to leave this airport except by plane.
How long did you have to wait?
It was 8 hours. Literally I got there as they had shut the door. Like I literally was minutes away from getting it. Like any one thing that could have happened during the day had been a little bit faster, I would have got on the flight. The plane hadn't even gotten away from the gantry. They just shut the door and that was it. And so I watched the plane go away, and the plane flew to Boston and got the people off and refueled and resupplied, and then flew back to Atlanta, and I got it on the second time.
It takes 4 hours to fly from Atlanta to Boston? Well, okay. I'm sure there has to be, turnaround time and refuel and refurbishment. Yeah. So
no, it's only a 2 hours wheels up to wheels down, but I don't know about the turnaround time and whatnot.
I mean, it sounds like there was a 2-hour turnaround time because, it took 8 hours and it was a trip there and a trip back. So we have that. So that's 4 hours. And so, okay, if it's only a 2-hour flight, then there must be a 2-hour turnaround time. And wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Or it might have been a different plane. I have no idea. But and just for funs and giggles, I essentially just sat at my gate for JetBlue was great. They didn't even charge me for missing my flight. I'm like, I'm gonna be out some money for this for a rebook, at least a rebooking fee. And they're like, nope, you're all set. I'm like, okay, yeah,
good for JetBlue.
And so so that was good on them. But like 20 minutes before the flight was supposed to start boarding, all of our phones ring, and you could see everybody in the whole at the whole gate all looking at their phones, and it's like, your flight is now boarding at Concourse E, which in Atlanta Airport is like easily a half mile away, if not more. I had to take the tram to it, and it rode all the way out there. I believe while I was there, my phone buzzed and said, "No, just kidding." But the JetBlue app never updated and said the new gate, so I wasn't I wasn't sure what to understand. So I went all the way there. It was nothing. It's late at night now. The airport's starting to shut down. And so it's one of those, like, what do I do now? Like, oh, for Christ's sakes. And I noticed that gate now was reassigned to another JetBlue flight, which is the 7 a.m. the next morning flight, which is the next time I would have to get out of Atlanta without rebooking with a different carrier. I'm like, please don't make me spend the night at this airport. And luckily I got back in plenty of time. They hadn't even started boarding my group yet, and then I got home, and instead of riding home with my wife and daughter, which was the original plan, I got to take a cab. So,
well, you got home. That's the important part.
And again, I am all recovered. I have finished up all the backlog of all of the all of the Patreon stuff that needed to get done and didn't get done before I left for Atlanta. And so, and now we're doing a show. So shall we get on with the show, Aaron?
I wondered how long you were going to let that uncomfortable silence last.
See, you don't need to mention it, because with the power of editing, it just disappears.
It was at least a 30-second silence, listeners.
Yes. But I'm going to spare all of you from that, because, I mean, this is the nature of podcasts. Sometimes we need time to think.
Okay, so Weird. The first topic here is a link to a YouTube video about a podcast.
Yes.
That the parking lot. Yeah. What's going on here?
The podcast is called the Human Behavior Podcast. The show, the specific episode that I listened to was called The Parking Lot. It was found. It was presented to me by host emeritus Sean Sarantino. Thanks, Sean, for finding this, because I thought it was really, really interesting, and it was really, really good because they were specifically talking about the report that we talked about in a previous episode on the Nashville police analysis of the shooting at the Covenant School. And specifically, they were talking about the fact that the killer spent several hours just parked in their car in various parking lots, just getting ready for the next phase of their plan and just getting their nerve up. And the idea was, if someone had seen that and really looked at it, it would have looked odd. And if they had taken any sort of movement to it, they probably would have figured out that it was in fact very, very odd. And maybe they could have called the police and stopped it before it happened. And just talking about just the general idea, it's related to this show in the fact that it's both talking about specifically that shooting event. And they specifically are saying, look, don't worry too much about what's in the manifesto, what they said they're interested in, what's going on, because these people are so mentally ill and so screwed up that if you're at that point where you're thinking shooting complete strangers is somehow going to be a viable solution to life's problems, then you don't even know what the hell's going on with your brain. And so therefore, to try to figure out from things that they said and things that they've done, a rhyme or a reason to it is just never going to happen. But as a general rule, these people are off enough that they are going to do behaviors that are very not normal. And one thing that you need to always be looking for is the abnormal, and to be queued up to it and be, what is that all about? And
so give me a for example here, because you did say that if someone had been paying attention to what the shooter was doing in the parking lot, they would have realized something was off. Well, I don't know what the shooter was doing other than, as you say, waiting and getting up nerve. But what would have been a tip off for observers?
Just the fact that the shooter drove to the gun club, stopped there, was in the back of the parking lot at the gun club for a while, and then got out and got on all the tactical gear and then left. That's one strange thing, is who shows up at the gun club, puts on all their gun stuff, and then leaves. Now,
True.
Granted, the answer is some people. I have definitely driven to the gun club, opened up my range bag, realized that the ammo I was bringing is not with me, and then drove home, got my ammo, then drove back. Or drove home and realized, I don't have enough time now to go to the range. So I just used it all up, getting ready to go to the range, driving to the range, and then driving home. But the other one was that when they got to the school, again, they parked very, very far away, and they had on all their tactical gear, and the car was filled with their stuffed animals and weird stuff. And again, they were just psyching themselves up. So it was not like, as they were saying, like you'll sometimes see a car parked at the far part of the parking lot, and that might be a worker for that thing, and they're smoking a cigarette and eating their lunch and just staying the hell away from people. And to look into that car and see that person there, or you're having a phone conversation with somebody or something like that, and you're just having a private moment. It should be pretty obvious just driving by, that person's that. But the possibility that, number one, they probably weren't hiding their weapons terribly well, or the fact that they were wearing the load-bearing vest and all that stuff. That's all. It's just there could have been some hints, and I think they may have given some other examples of some other events that were violent where there was some weird stuff that was going on.
Alrighty then.
Yeah, that's all I really wanted to get into. It was tangential to. It was tangential to the podcast. Very, very interesting. And I think, if you listen to this show, then you like podcasts. Go check them out. It was very entertaining and very educational. Something that was less entertaining and less educational. So we were at NRAAM in Atlanta last week, and one of the interesting things that was there was the fact that this was the first time in I think it's been like almost every year minus the COVID shutdowns, Donald Trump has spoken at the annual meeting, and which is not ever anything that I've ever bothered with, because political speeches are boring as hell. But this year he did not attend. He was at the Pope's funeral during the meeting, but that was but he had let the NRA know that he was not going to be attended well before Pope Francis had passed away. So that was definitely not the reason, even though some people may have kind of given that as his out. It was not. but yeah, he just gave a very, very brief speech from looks like from the Oval Office. It is just under 2 minutes, and it's pretty damn innocuous and pointless. The only thing that I took away from it is he talked about like his opposition to the pistol brace ban, to which I note that the only reason why that's there was because it was riding on the coattails of the bump stock ban that he pushed for. So yeah, Donald Trump. But yeah, there wasn't even. I looked at it as potential for a weird audio Fisk, and there wasn't even enough meat on those bones for that.
I mean, I was really surprised that he was able to restrain himself to about 2 minutes.
There is that. I mean, you could read into that on so many ways, and I don't even want to get into that. What does that mean? Does he care about us so little that, all right, what do I need to say? All right, cool. Draft up the speech, put it on the teleprompter. I'll read it. We're done. It's like a text breakup.
Now here's the thing, and I'm being far too symbolic. So I'm looking at the video and it says 1 minute 57 seconds. And if it had lasted for exactly 2 minutes, you could say that this was symbolic because, Second Amendment, 2 minutes 2A. But that didn't happen.
No. Though it could have been written for that, and just to hit that poll and not have 3 seconds disappear, unless he was also literally looking at a stopwatch that was also beside the teleprompter. I don't know. That is a very interesting theatrical idea behind it. I don't put any credence to it at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. But I was just saying that's where my brain went.
Mm-hmm. Well, another one that's, I mean, mostly good, but at the same time, I wanted to bring it up, but at the same time, it raises as many questions as more questions than it gives answers. But this is it's not an executive order. It's just a declaration from the DOJ that what was it? 13 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I thought there was more than that. I don't know. Counting's hard. But a number of people have had their rights restored that were prohibited people, which is great. I love that. It's especially since I'm not aware of any of these people being particularly dangerous, but also doesn't really talk about who these people are. The one person that I know who it is Mel Gibson.
I was about to ask, is it that Mel Gibson?
It is that Mel Gibson.
Okay. I mean, I couldn't find, it's not like there was a link or whatever, and it's not a terribly uncommon name. There could be another person. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm asking for context. How do you know it was him? What did he do to lose his firearm rights?
It was, I believe it was a domestic violence conviction from back one of his earlier marriages, and when he was still struggling with alcoholism. Okay. I guess he's continuously struggling with alcoholism. He's had multiple relapses, but he evidently had a domestic violence incident, but it was decades ago. So it's one of those, I am totally fine. However I may feel about Mel Gibson, and I have a lot of feelings about Mel Gibson on multiple levels. But this is definitely one of those ones of the akin to Martha Stewart, where it's one of those like, yeah, what are we concerned about here? If Mel Gibson wants to own a gun, I am not concerned. I don't know any of these other people. Don't feel like cross-referencing and trying to figure out who they are or why they are, but I also haven't heard about these people, so it's not like any of them are serial killers or death row inmates or that sort of stuff. So it's restoration of rights is good. The number being not terribly big is lame, and the fact that it's not really giving any context on what's going on with them. Like I would love for this to be just like all right, yeah, we restored like 500 people's rights this week, and 15 of them all agreed to be profiled on this to let them know that, oh yeah, no, they got caught with a joint back in 1986. And they've since moved on. They don't do drugs anymore, or they do drugs, but they run a dispensary and it's perfectly legal.
Yeah, I agree. That would be interesting.
Yeah, it just having and also just being a public outreach on how horrible our prohibited person status is that yes, there absolutely are violent criminals that I am perfectly fine with not being able to walk into a gun shop and buy a gun. Like, I think that there are definitely people that should have guns, but the number of people that can't have guns is considerably larger than the number of people who I think also shouldn't have guns. And so, yeah, it would be great if it was a profile on how onerous the prohibited person status has become. Again, Martha Stewart, she answered some questions incorrectly about some stock trading information. I'm not even going to say that she lied. I don't believe she necessarily lied because I don't think that she's in charge of her own finances. I think she has people doing that for her. If you asked about how my stock purchases go, it's not going to be anything because it's in a managed account. I mean, granted, It's not, I don't have a stockbroker, but like if I had Martha Stewart money, I might. So, yeah.
Yeah, if I had her level of money, I would definitely have people for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's one of those things of but they considered that perjury. That's a felony. She did time in prison. And yeah, so that's so that's Martha Stewart. She can never own a gun until Pam Bondi says it's okay. And
she at least though has the wealth that she can hire bodyguards.
Oh, absolutely. But it's one of those, but it's the principle of it.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, it was the same thing with me as I wasn't that much of a gun nut when I first moved to Massachusetts. I liked guns. And then they told me no.
There's just something about the human spirit in general, but the American spirit in particular, that when someone tells you you can't do this, you can't have that we go, well, now I want to have it. Now I want to do it. And I'm gonna.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't go into too deep into it in the Fisk that's happening later on in this show, but yeah, that's the whole point is to talking about like assault weapons, use of assault weapons before the assault weapons ban. Super duper rare because they pretty much didn't exist. That's the reason why they were managed to banning them. And when they banned them, people went, well, let's check out these AR-15 things. Oh, they actually kind of kick butt. I should have one, and everybody else should have one too, and I should start shooting at the range. And people are like, oh, it's got a lot of capacity and low recoil, and you can customize it and do cool stuff with it. I want one of those. So yeah, it was really the ban is the reason why I walked right past the High Point AR-15 in Atlanta and didn't realize it for the significance of the fact that wait, High Point is making an AR-15 now. Because everyone's making an AR-15, and that's because they said they told us no. Dude,
I mean, well, maybe you talked about it last week, and I didn't listen to it, but you can't just say that and not drop a link.
Oh, yeah. It's in last week's show notes.
Okay.
It's not that significant. It is just a bare bones, very very simple, no frills, but not bad, mil spec AR-15. With the High Point logo on it.
Oh, and they're calling it the HP-15. Mm-hmm. That's cute.
The best part is that they have a pistol and a rifle version. The rifle that they had on display there had a loopholed scope on the top of it. It's one of those like that scope costs like 3 times the amount of that rifle.
Okay.
$300 rifle, $1,000 scope. Bump. Ta-da!
I mean, honestly, it makes me think of games like Fallout.
Yes.
This is the best gun I could find, and then you get a lucky loot drop, and here's the scope.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, of course you're going to put it on your best gun, even though the gun isn't great. It's what you have until you can get a better one.
Yep. But it's also High Point. They are professional trolls. High Point and Kel-Tec both just love trolling. And I'm trying to remember if we talked about it at the show, but one of the High Point marketing guys went, "Oh, you got to see this," and pulled up their Twitter and had the picture of George Kelgren, who walked across the way to Smith & Wesson and was examining the Smith & Wesson folding carbine.
Is that the one that you linked?
Yes.
On the Discord, and it's got the gangster music, and then he pauses, and then like the chains and the sunglasses fall on him.
Yes, yeah. He's looking at the rifle, and he looks over and realizes one of his guys is filming him, and they drop the glasses.
I needed that laugh.
Yeah.
But we aren't done with the topic.
No, unfortunately, yeah. You're really gonna need that laugh because. The stupidity continues. We've talked about this before, but it's just really, this is just saying this is not going away, is that California, and this is sounding an awful lot like the Colorado semi-auto ban that just got passed, is pushing for a bill that will ban Glocks. And the reason is because Glock switches exist and can be acquired, and that converts the Glocks to machine guns, and so therefore they're essentially considering them readily convertible machine guns.
So, I mean, by that logic, you could go suppressors are, well, actually they're probably illegal in California for all I know, but you could put a suppressor on any pistol.
Mm-hmm.
So long as you have like a threaded barrel. Therefore, we're going to ban every single pistol that could accept a silencer.
I mean, Massachusetts did that. Now they addended the law, so now having a threaded barrel on your pistol now makes it an assault weapon, and so therefore not legal for sale.
I mean, there was a time, and it still is, but to a lesser extent, Glocks were the service sidearm of choice for practically every police force in the United States. Now times have changed and other guns have come into favor, but I would still say that the Glock 17 and 19 are the most prevalent pistols. I'd bet money on that. I bet you I bet you they are at least 50 to 51% of the police market share, and then the other 50% is everybody else, with like probably Sig Sauer and M&P. Well, Sig Sauer I might be a little biased because I do spend a lot of time in New Hampshire, and it seems like every cop in New Hampshire carries a Sig 320, but I mean, and Massachusetts is heavily weighted to the M&Ps, but still, even though it's heavily weighted for the M&Ps here in Massachusetts, I still see a ton of Glocks and holsters, including my town. Yeah, and still, that's just the police. Then you've got all the civilian-owned Glocks. I can't think of a single model of pistol that is more in common use than a Glock.
Aaron, let me twist that even further. Glock is still producing the Gen 3 only for California.
Really?
You could still buy a brand new Gen. I believe it's the Gen 3. I'm not a Glock nerd, and I don't really like them. But so I don't know if it's. I might be off on a generation. But the Gen 3 Glock was approved for California sale, but not the Gen 4 and Gen 5, and I don't know if we're up to 6 yet. And all that. So you can still buy a brand new Gen 3 Glock from Glock. They're still making them, and that is exclusively because that's the only one we can sell in California. And California is a gigantic ass state, which means if you could sell, I mean, California is bigger than most countries. So therefore, like, if you can, go into like this gun's only made so we can sell it in Italy, but it's Italy. California might be as big as Italy. So like literally Glock is making a special edition of Glock just for California, because that's how many Glocks California buys. And now they're planning on banning them.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah, definitely in common use. Mm-hmm. And so, just like the article says, this isn't going to survive a court challenge.
No.
But unfortunately, there has to be a court challenge, and it has to grind through the courts.
I mean, I just mentioned the fact that threaded barrels are now banned under the Massachusetts assault weapons ban. The assault weapons ban, I don't think, is going to survive a court challenge either. And there are court challenges, building up, but we're still waiting on them. So, yeah, that's great and good and all that, but like once they pass this, that's when the court cases start. And yeah, and so potentially something else can come through. And again, legislation. We need legislation. Contact your legislators. Tell them we need gun laws to come up. We need things like the Hearing Protection Act, concealed carry reciprocity, and that sort of stuff. But we also need just get it so that congratulations, maintain your own highways if you want to ban guns. We can do that.
So I just dropped a link that details the difference in Glock generations along with pictures.
Yeah.
Do you want me to put that in the show notes?
Yes, please.
Happy to.
Look at that. And we're up to 5, at least according to this article. And I don't think we have gone past 5.
I don't think so either. And
that Gen 1, that's a future collectible right there, which is kind of hilarious. But it's one of those like, oh yeah, no. An OG Gen 1 Glock, that's definitely a check this out. So yeah, it's one of those, I think it's probably going to pass.
Oh, I mean, of course it's going to pass. I mean, this is California. There hasn't been a single gun restriction that they haven't loved.
Mm-hmm. That's true. But it's also something that's coming to a state, especially an anti-gun state near you, because a lot of these ideas start in California. California was the first state to have an assault weapons ban, and California's assault weapons ban was used as a template for the federal one.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the question is which will be the next state to adopt this? New York, Hawaii, maybe, Washington or Oregon. I'm sure that they're just rushing to copy this.
Oh yeah, that's any of them. Massachusetts absolutely would do this, and I guarantee that in this law there is a law enforcement exemption, because there's a law enforcement exemption in all of these laws. So, you can't have a gun, but no, don't worry. Yes, it's the most popular gun used by police, and we're not stopping that. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's probably how they get police unions and sheriff's associations and whatever to support these laws. If there weren't these carve-outs, then they wouldn't get the support from the law enforcement that they crave to lend it validity, or the appearance of validity.
Yeah. And may I add, people will often sometimes hear police officers will call non-officers civilians, but I quickly point out that peace officers are in fact civilians, and they are not a military force. They are not part of the National Guard or anything like that. So I think personally, whatever is required within your state, the cops should have to follow it as well. So our police should have to have 10-round magazines, because it's safer. And certainly police officers should not have AR-15s, because those are weapons of war only used for mass killings. So why would a police officer want to kill as many people as fast as possible? That's what they say.
That's true. So, yeah, speaking of that's what they say, this is the perfect time and place to pivot into another patented Weer'd audio Fisk.
So I was scrolling through the Twix and I found this gem, and I knew I had a Fisk at hand. Turns out Democrat Senator from the state of California, Adam Schiff, has submitted a bill titled The Assault Weapons Ban of 2025. Dick Blumenthal, Alex Padilla, and Everytown's own Representative Lucy McBath all co-sponsored, but didn't speak outside the hour-long press conference that I could not be bothered to sit through. But co-sponsor and Audio Fist perennial Chris Murphy of Connecticut also released an audio statement. Of course, this is going to be filled with lies, but I need to let them say them first.
Today I will be introducing the Assault Weapons Ban of 2025. A bill that would ban the sale, manufacture, import, and transfer of military-style assault weapons.
So it goes without saying, everything is in the show notes, including the text of the bill. Essentially, it's a one-feature assault weapons ban with not a whole lot new from the 1994 ban. It does add the presence of a vertical foregrip, which is ironic since most guns don't have them from the factory. So this adds a pitfall of constructive intent, as foregrips are totally legal for other guns. So in theory, owning a featureless AR-15 and a KSG with a foregrip could be a crime. Also, it does have a grandfather provision. So in the chance that this does pass, the guns and magazines in your possession are still legal, much like the pre-ban mags during the federal ban or in the various other ban states. That being said, transfer is illegal. So like in Canada, where similar laws are in place, your assault-style weapon dies with you. Your estate cannot possess it after your death, and likely the guns and magazines would need to be destroyed to stay in full compliance with the law. I note that if this passes, because chances are it won't. Still, it's very important to know what the gun prohibitionists are thinking, because even if this is pure virtue signaling, they wouldn't say it if they don't want it. Oh, and assault-style weapon is like saying home-style chocolate chip cookies. That style modifier says it's the furthest damn thing from that implication. Those cookies weren't made by your mom in the kitchen with natural ingredients. In fact, they were made in an industrial factory, and you won't be able to pronounce half the ingredients on the list.
Since 2006, there have been 486 mass shootings involving assault weapons. Hundreds and hundreds of Americans have been killed in these mass shootings. This bill is a way to attack that massive threat to our safety and security.
Okay, so first up, this is a weird statistic. Since 2006? Why? It's not a round number. Further, I don't know what the significance of the date is. The federal assault weapons ban was in place from 1994 to 2004. So why not start counting at 2004 or 5? I thought maybe it was to encapsulate the Virginia Tech shooting, which was in 2007, since it was the first major school shooting since the 1999 shooting at Columbine. The definitive school shooting by both the criminologists but also spree killers. And I will note that also happened after the signing of both the federal assault weapons ban and the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act. Either way, I have the FBI statistics in the show notes, and from 2000 to 2019, there were 333 mass shootings per FBI standards. And not all of these events, the above-mentioned Virginia Tech shooting comes to mind, involved assault weapons, even by the modern definitions in this proposed law. Already the numbers are suspect, but we know gun prohibitionists love to play the lies, damn lies, and statistics game.
Dianne Feinstein introduced the first assault weapons ban 31 years ago after a school shooting in Stockton, California. For 10 years, that bill had a dramatic impact on mass shootings and mass casualties.
Not so fast, Adam. See, I have in the show notes a report from the U.S. Department of Justice called An Updated Assessment of the Federal Assault Weapons Ban, Impacts on Gun Markets and Gun Violence, 1994 to 2003. And in it says, numerous studies have examined the use of assault weapons in crime prior to the federal ban. The definition of assault weapon varies across the studies and did not always correspond exactly to that of the 1994 law, in part because a number of studies were done prior to 1994. In general, however, studies appeared to focus on various semi-automatics with detachable magazines and military-style features. According to these accounts, assault weapons typically accounted for up to 8% of guns used in crime, depending on the specific assault weapon definition and data source used. I would hardly call that significant, especially since criminals generally aren't picky about the guns they get. So before the 1994 assault weapons ban, guns that could easily be described as assault weapons were fairly uncommon. Also, if you talk to defensive-minded people who were serious about their weapons, the go-to defensive gun prior to the 1990s was really the M1 carbine, which was not banned by the 1994 law. So-called assault weapons might be more common now, but only because they're more common in the wild. Therefore, so much easier to steal or barter for.
But when that expired, mass fatalities and gun shootings went up by 236%. The impact was that dramatic.
Technically, he might be right, but this is one of those statistical games called the law of small numbers, because your statistical noise will be a significant trend in on itself. In 2003, the last full year of the assault weapons ban, there were 12 mass shooting events. But in 2004, there were only 5. So one could falsely argue that the repeal of the ban cut the number of events by half. Again, this is the problem with small numbers. Plus, the definitions are always changing, and he's not using a standard term. The FBI considers a mass shooting an event where 4 or more people are killed aside from the killer. But an active shooter event is simply somebody trying to kill people in a confined area with gunfire. And of course, gun prohibitionists love to mix and match the terms to create confusion, so that a kid bringing a gun to school but is caught is conflated with the horrors of events like Columbine or Sandy Hook.
It's time to bring back that powerful common sense reform again. It's time for the assault weapons ban of 2025.
It wasn't that powerful, and likely this bill will die in committee. So it isn't time for it. But I hope putting that out there really does make you feel better. Now, on to Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy.
After 30 years of the gun lobby running this place, we passed the first meaningful anti-gun violence legislation in 3 decades.
I'm very optimistic that the NRA 2.0 movement is returning the lobbying power of the NRA to Washington, D.C., as well as to local races. That being said, the corruption of Wayne LaPierre clearly went deep, and the NRA was checked out of the 2A race for a good while. Plus, President Obama was a staunch anti-gun president, but he just couldn't get enough support to pass anything gun-related. Gun prohibitionists like to blame the gun lobby because it sounds corporate and unfeeling. But really, it was grassroots Second Amendment supporters like you, the listeners, that kept those federal bans and restrictions from becoming law. Still, they did pass the Bipartisan Safe Roads Community Act, which wasn't much. But man, they keep patting themselves on the back for it, don't they?
It included a provision that made it a little bit harder, but meaningfully harder, for young buyers to get their hands on assault weapons. It effectively imposed a 3-day waiting period. It made a number of other meaningful changes in our gun laws.
Okay, this is the part that really pisses me off. He's bragging about restricting young adult gun buyers after the Supreme Court ruled such restrictions are unconstitutional. He's literally cheering for violating the law and the U.S. Constitution he swore to uphold.
Guess what has happened since we passed that law? School shootings in this country have dropped by 23%. Mass shootings have dropped by 25%. Urban gun crime is down by 20%.
Again, small numbers. And in the first few years of the Biden administration, it turns out the FBI crime numbers were junk because major U.S. cities weren't reporting their gun violence numbers.
We have shown, whether it be back in 1994 or in 2022, that when we pass common sense gun laws that still allow for law-abiding citizens to get their hands on a weapon to protect their home or to shoot for sport, we save countless numbers of lives.
Except the guns people choose to shoot for sport and self-defense are the guns that will be banned or restricted by this proposed law. Essentially, everything Senator Murphy and Schiff said were lies. The truth is in the show notes. If the laws were such common sense, why lie about it? Those are your anti-gun talking points and a few rebuttals to combat them.
So weird. I noticed. Okay. As to the actual Fisk itself, good job, no notes. But I did notice that you use some of my terminology, like Twix and gun prohibitionist, and I don't know if that was deliberate or just I'm rubbing off on you, but either way, I really appreciate that.
100% it was deliberate, and you are rubbing off on me. This is one of those like, I don't use it often enough, and so when I'm writing out the script, I definitely would write gun banner. No, gun prohibitionist. That definitely has much more weight.
It does. So thank you. And also, when you mentioned a KSG with a foregrip, I felt like you were talking about my newest gun because, as I mentioned 2 podcasts ago, y'all had gotten me a KSG for my birthday, and I really loved it, and I wanted to get a foregrip for it, and I did find a Magpul, what is it, RVG or something like that, and I have one now, and it works great. I love it. And again, I don't know if that was accidental or intentional, but it felt like you were blowing me a kiss, and I appreciate that.
I needed a manually operated firearm that also took a vertical foregrip, and the KSG, like pretty much everybody notes that they run so much better with a vertical foregrip instead of that. You don't see a Mossberg 500 with a vertical foregrip on it nearly as much as you see KSGs with it. And so I also you were talking about it, so it was in my mind, and so I said, what, that's perfect, is the fact that this would in fact make it so that like you could take the vertical foregrip off of your AR, because I believe you have one on your AR, don't you?
Of course I do. Yeah,
and so you could take that off of your AR, but keep it on your KSG because that's a manually operated gun, so it doesn't count. But then all you need is an Allen wrench, and ta-da! You've swapped it over. So wouldn't that be readily convertible into an assault weapon? Laws are dumb.
Well, I just find the entire concept of constructive intent to be quite repulsive.
Oh, I mean, it is really, really dumb, especially since, again, I note that I have here in my armory many, many, many guns. And also there happens to be the pegboard full of all the various tools that we use. And so one of those things is a hacksaw. And so in theory, give me 20 minutes and I can convert any of these to a short-barreled rifle or a short-barreled shotgun. But no, I guess that doesn't count as constructive intent. But
well, I mean, we all know that the main reason for these laws is to have a chilling effect on gun accessories. And so, okay, people in general like having hacksaws. It's not seen as an accessory for a murder tool. So they wouldn't even think about that. But a specific foregrip for a firearm, no, that's illegal. And so, yeah, that's where the constructive intent comes into play.
Yeah, they also play with just like the 94 assault weapons ban. The AR-15 and the AK platform and all the various other guns weren't super popular in there. Therefore, going after banning them actually did a whole lot better. And so, even California, even though Glocks are insanely popular, they still have heavy handgun restrictions in that state, so that the number of gun owners that are there to fight against it are limited. So they won't go after, say, someone who has an AR pistol and an AR rifle. So you've got the lower with the shoulder stock on it, designed for the 16-inch plus upper, but you've also got the gun that doesn't have a shoulder stock but has a 8 or 10-inch barrel on it. And in theory, just pop the pins and you could swap them back and forth all you want, but you don't see someone having that be constructive intent just because it's such a common thing that someone would have 2 guns that are technically interchangeable, although it would be illegal if you did it.
I mean, part of me wants to go, shut up, you'll give them ideas. But you'd think by now that if they could think of it, they would have done it already.
Yeah. I think that they have thought of it, and there may come a time when they do it, but that time is not now because, again, it'll affect too many people, and it will, again, I wish that Pam Bondi had written up all the people that she had restored the rights to, with some biographical information, so you could see how dumb and really how innocuous these people were, even though they had a lifetime prohibition from firearms. It's the same idea. Is you don't want the normies, the people that aren't gun nuts, to see exactly how pedantic and horrible our gun laws are.
Mm-hmm. Because when they see the gun laws, most of the time they're going to go, "This is garbage."
Mm-hmm. That is it. It was like when I told somebody about how the fact that I had to pull out my gun license to buy gunpowder for reloading. And they went, "Well, it's gunpowder. That's, it's they may have considered an explosive. It's technically an accelerant, but it's dangerous. You certainly have to be careful when handling it." And it's one of those, yes, but I also then drove across the street and without seeing another human being, swiped my credit card at a gas pump and filled my car up with gasoline. If you want to have a problem with me having smokeless powder in my house, then you got to also have a problem with the fact that I have gasoline in my house as well.
Well, I mean, it's a fire hazard inside your house. You should keep it like...
I keep my gas can in my garage.
Yes. Okay. I was about to say that, but then I didn't know if you had a garage or not.
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
All right. Well, I think we've done that to death. And so I will point out, was mentioned before, I'm back from Atlanta. But while I was there, I bumped into my good friend and now NRA board member, John Richardson. And we decided that after all the meetings were done, I'd like to get his after action report. I am pleased and honestly very excited to welcome back to the Assorted Calibers podcast, NRA board member and proprietor of No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money, John Richardson. How you doing, John?
I am doing great. Good to see you down in Atlanta and excited to be here to talk about it.
Yeah, no, it was awesome bumping into you and Amanda Suffolcool, and it looks like Amanda's going to be actually on the show next week.
Cool.
So yeah, so that's good. Hopefully everything goes right. We haven't recorded with her yet, so don't count your chickens. But yeah, I was super duper excited to have you back on the show because hey, we got a man on the inside of the NRA, and I would love to hear. And also, was this your first meeting?
I had attended a board meeting once upon a time, but this was my first board meeting this past Monday.
Yes, as a member, I mean.
As a member.
So that's
It was a long meeting.
Well, I mean, I will say that we talked about it in last week's show, which we recorded in Atlanta, about how we were feeling a lot of promise for the reform movement. We've been talking about it a bunch on the show, and that that the reform candidates are doing very, very well in these elections, and it seems like also a lot of the longstanding candidates aren't being overly hostile. But would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. In terms of this election cycle, if you include the 29 or the 76 director, we took 20 out of 29 seats. It's hard to do better than that.
Yeah.
And then when it came to board elections itself within the board, we took presidency, first VP, second VP. Basically, most people were by acclamation. The only two races that we had were for president and then for secretary, which remained with John Fraser. And I think a lot of that had to do with his assistant was retiring, and there were people that wanted continuity within the office. And so they voted for John Fraser.
I mean, that is awesome. So, so what was your overall, I mean, you said it was a long meeting. I'm not going to ask you to give all the minutes, but what was your overall impression of this year's meeting?
Now, are we talking meeting of members or the board meeting?
Yes.
Okay. First, the meeting, let's go with meeting of members, which was our annual meeting that we must have held on Saturday. It was 4 hours long. Discussion was allowed to continue. In past meetings that I've attended, quite often stuff was ruled out of order and was not considered. There were 4 resolutions considered after the reports of the officers. And I'm proud to say that my resolution on transparency was adopted with very little negative. There were negative comments, but when the vote came, it was nearly unanimous. Stephen Gutowski of the Reload said he counted 6 who voted against it, which for me, that it was an overwhelming victory, because this was the third time I'd had a serious resolution considered, and the third time was the charm. And it was nothing radical. It's just saying my transparency resolution said that we need to put our Form 990, which is a government tax report, online. We need to put board minutes online. We need to put the bylaws online. Right now, if you wanted a copy of the bylaws, you would have to either email or write the office of the secretary, and then they would put a paper copy of something in the mail to you that may be 100% up to date or maybe not. There's no reason not to have it online. And then I asked for a feasibility study to see about live streaming board meetings. Small towns, big towns, major cities, little cities, villages, boards of adjustment, zoning boards, virtually all are now live streamed. And there's no reason that we cannot figure out a way to do it. The more people know what's going on the inside within the board meeting, other than executive session, the more trust they're going to have, the more they're going to feel that the wool isn't being pulled over their eyes. It just makes for a healthier organization, and will bring back members. And that's the bottom line for me. In terms of the expenses of it, people are saying, well, it's going to cost almost every bit of thing that I'm asking to be put online is already generated. So that expense is already, somebody has to take minutes. Somebody has to, write up publish the bylaws. Somebody has to do the tax filings. All you're doing is adding a web page. And then, well, and I had said it should be members only. Guess what I found out yesterday? You go to the membership, you go to NRA.org under membership, and yes, there is a members only link, which is where you go to get the NRA members commitment, the commitment to compliance. So it's all you have to do is start feeding it in there. It's set up. It's so easy. Now I have to get my fellow board members to agree to it. There were 3 other resolutions. One that was referred to the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee, which I will be honest needed a little bit of work. It was on conflict of interest, and it was perhaps a little bit overly broad. The most interesting thing about that resolution passing was they had a paper ballot to vote for it. And that was when you have 100 members calling for a paper ballot, you tear off yes or no. And yes, it was referred to committee, but it was referred with an amendment. It was somebody told me who had worked in the secretary's office for 28 years that this was the very first meeting of members that she ever saw a paper ballot used. So that was interesting in and of itself. And then the other 2 were more backward looking in that they were critical. One was critical of David Coy and asked him, who had been a vice president in past and was on the audit committee, asked that he resign and be off the board. And another was a strong resolution about the executive vice president and meddling in board elections. Both of those were defeated, but I did talk to the author of the meddling resolution, Ron Andring, and he said he was very pleased. He got his voice heard, and his other resolution got referred to committee. So he was very happy. So a lot was discussed, and I think just the fact that we accomplished the transparency resolution shows that things are moving along in a reform direction. And then my first board meeting, we had done an orientation before that, but then the board meeting itself went from 9 a.m. with breaks for lunch and dinner to about 11:58 p.m. I think not everybody stayed for the whole meeting, but virtually everybody who was new did. And we had a lot of tired people.
And so how did that go?
Well, number one, I think it was very civil. There was nobody pointing and shouting at one another. And with the reform element, the reform side, team NRA 2.0 took the majority of the executive committee, took all the nominating committee, took 3 out of 4 spots for the Whittington Center, 4 out of 5 spots on the audit committee, which is now what's called a committee of the board, meaning that when the audit committee takes actions, while they can be overruled by the entire board of directors, they are speaking for the board. They're not just making recommendations, they are taking actions. Everybody who was nominated and it was mandated by the court order from the New York Attorney General's trial, that the audit committee become a committee of the board, and three of the members of the board are newly elected. Jonathan Goldstein, who's an attorney in Philadelphia, Teresa Einacker, who's an attorney in New Jersey, a Second Amendment attorney, and me. I was elected to that committee. So, and we've already had our first meeting.
I read this on your blog, and I'll have the link to that in the show notes for anybody who wants to see it. But you mentioned that you weren't seeking this position.
I was not. I mean, after we got elected, we were asked to, say what committees you want to serve on, and I said bylaws and resolutions, the Legislative Policy Committee, and ethics. It was not a committee I sought out. As my wife likes to put it, I didn't seek the committee sought me. One of the requirements is that they need somebody on the committee to serve as a, quote, financial expert. Given I was a certified financial planner for 20 years, financial advisor for 25, I guess I'm by default the financial expert.
Well, and you also have been a very loud voice for the reform candidates. So I've got to say that not only do I like you personally, we've been friends for many, many years, but also just what you stand for. As I said when I endorsed you on the show earlier, is one of those you have always been fighting the good fight for the Second Amendment, and so having both your expertise with numbers and your views on the Second Amendment really does seem like that's a very good choice.
And I mean, the other 2 people on the committee, Rocky Marshall, who's the second VP, he was one of the 4 for reform last year. And then Charlie Beers, even though he has tended to side with the other side, really has done an excellent job as the chairman of the audit committee. Very serious, very disciplined about how it's done. I think it will help us keep our finances in order, and stuff will not be swept under the rug in general.
I mean, that is awesome. So I think let's pull back for a second and just get your overall opinion, because of course this was actually my first time at the NRA annual meeting since 2019. Obviously, it got shut down due to COVID, and then also all the Wayne LaPierre and Letitia James fiasco did make me wonder, once things started opening back up, number one, how many people would be willing to travel in those years, during or after the COVID lockdowns, and then how many people were willing to actually show up at the NRA annual meeting when it was so embattled and in such trouble. So how do you feel about the prognosis for the NRA now?
I am optimistic. We had upwards of 70,000 people attend. Atlanta is a good venue. I mean, the Georgia World Congress Center has plenty of space. There's tons of hotels around it. Traffic in Atlanta sucks. I mean, let's get real. It's always bad, but traffic elsewhere is bad too. I know I talked to one vendor, and I made sure to talk and thank every vendor I ran across for being there, because we need to get them back. And she says, I really like the idea that it's not in Texas. Nothing against Texas, but she said it's just too often in her mind in Texas. And so she liked Atlanta. So this year was Atlanta, next year's Houston. The following year, 2027, will be back in Atlanta, and then 2028 will be in Orlando, as far as I know. So it's still East Coast centric, but there's a lot more people living on the East Coast. The other thing is that our board meetings we'll have 2 more board meetings this year, one in September and one in January. They're going to be in Reston, Virginia, right by Dulles Airport, right near the NRA headquarters. So much, it's a cost-conscious approach. We're not going to Anchorage, Alaska on some junket. We are going to be in a place where you're not having to pay for the entire staff to go down to some other city and fly them, etc. So, I mean, we're being cost-conscious about it, which is good. We're being serious about, the members' money. I wasn't on the floor as much as I would have wanted to be. And I think you were probably there a lot more than me. But It was a good crowd. Friday, Saturday, a little off on Sunday. It probably picked up after 12:30 when people got out of church. But I ran into a lot of people. One thing that I really liked, and something that I think you would find interesting, is that they now had, for lack of a better word, a radio row. I think it was called The Voice of the Second Amendment.
Yes.
Where you had spots for podcasters to set up. Sometimes they were sharing a booth. Sometimes it was theirs alone. But, I saw Cam Edwards there. I saw you. I saw Michael Bain there. A lot of different people were there. Tony Simon.
Mm-hmm.
So getting out to new media, to the people that are going to be, listening to podcasts, which is excellent. And it's an underserved, the NRA is finally growing up or growing to understand that we need to reach out to a somewhat younger audience.
That's certainly something to be said. I mean, you see the numbers, and newspapers have been in decline for years. Mm-hmm. But also one thing that my wife and I were talking about is, my daughter is 10 years old. She's, Generation Alpha, as they're calling it now, and all that. And as far as I know, I believe they're really the first generation to really have never watched television. They watch streaming services, they listen to podcasts,
wow,
and all that, but really they don't watch. I think the only time my daughter ever watches TV is when she's with her grandparents.
Wow. I never thought about that, but I think you might be right.
Yeah.
I look at my granddaughters, one who's the age of your daughter, and the younger is 7 years old, and they're watching the Disney Channel a lot, streaming service. Mm-hmm. The TV comes into the house using YouTube TV. Their dad, of course, watches lots of sports. He's an athletic trainer, so it actually makes sense. But, they watch a lot that and Netflix a lot, and very little, unless we're actually there watching the nightly news, stuff that comes in, what you traditionally would have come in over the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's good to see that the NRA is embracing that as well, especially given that the mainstream media has never been very charitable towards them.
No. I thought there was good crowds. I mean, if 70,000 is an honest figure, and I think it is.
Yeah, I believe so.
It's good. We had, I would say, 250 to 500 people during parts of the meeting of the members, and I thought that was a good turnout. We were allowed to go as long as we needed, and that was good. Then President Bob Barr let the discussions go on, and he should be commended for that. the transfer of power in the board of directors meeting. Once we elected Bill Bockenberg as president, he took over the meeting. Bob Barr stepped down, moved down into a seat with the rest of the board members. One thing I found very interesting at the board is that we are seated by alphabetical order, which kind of surprised me. It's like you just don't sit anywhere, you sit in alphabetical order. And so I was between David Rainey, who's a professor of history at Hillsdale College, and Mark Robinson, former lieutenant governor of North Carolina. Interesting location.
I mean, that is really cool. Well, I am so glad to hear your on boots on the ground view of how the meeting went, and I think we're all hopeful for the future of a robust and powerful NRA.
Well, one thing I want to point out that's now open. Traditionally, you can start gathering signatures for petition candidates at the close of the meeting of members, so roughly 2:00 Saturday afternoon. The way it has always worked from 2024 backwards is that to gather signatures, it had to be on an official form in ink with a hand signature, and you had to mail those in to the office of the secretary. You're still allowed to do it that way, but we have gone to the 21st century, and as part of the court order, we have now opened it up so that you can sign a person's petition electronically, and it is so simple. The person applies to the office of the secretary. They set up a personal link for them. They can still send in paper petitions, but they can go through to their own website or email or Facebook, publish their link. You go to the link, you put your name in, your membership number, your address, and you sign. Let's say if you're using an iPad, you sign with your fingertip or however you want to do it, with the mouse or however, and you hit submit. It's accepted. It's valid immediately. It saves the office of the secretary all the trouble of having to validate every signature by hand. For the candidates, you can get your name out very easly, and more importantly, that the signature you have just gathered, your friend, your backer has signed, is valid, and you can keep track of it. They have a dashboard that they can keep track of it. Amanda, who we referred to earlier.
Yep.
She's doing it. By breakfast Sunday or Monday, she had already had 40 signatures. So she was about 1/10 of the way there. Undoubtedly, she's going to get nominated by the nominating committee, but she will also be on the ballot by petition. My friend Todd Vandermeide out in Illinois, who ran this time, unfortunately just missed getting elected, has started doing it. Some criticisms, we're going to have too many petition candidates. It's too easy. No, it's not. It's something we needed to do. A lot of people don't go to gun clubs. They don't go to meetings, but they can go online and sign your petition. So it's a great, as the judge said about the old method, it was antiquated and so 20th century. We're now in the 21st century, and I'm so happy about that.
Well, that is awesome, and that will also keep things moving within the group, and it'll keep it moving in a way more representative to the members. Which has been one of the complaints. I don't know how valid that is from the anti-gun groups. This is not your father's NRA. This is the NRA of the extremists. Well, it's hard to make that argument when you can just vote.
Yeah, and the one thing that makes our board of directors different than most other nonprofits board of directors, yes, it's large. Okay, we can deal with that. We are democratically elected. We run for the office. In this case, we ran a campaign. Most other boards, the nominating committee says we're going to put this person, and God knows, I have no idea if anybody but the board of trustees or board of directors self-selects the next board of directors. In this case, the voting members select who they want to be on the board. And so, yes, we're kind of messy sometimes, but we are democratic about it.
Well, that is great. And again, thank you for all that information. And hopefully we'll have you back on to talk about the other meetings.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. And of course, you can find John at the NRA meetings as a board of directors, and also at No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money.
So I am definitely attending the NRA meeting in Orlando, even if I don't do any of the others, because Orlando city limits are like an hour and a half at most from my house. Of course, the problem with Orlando, like many major cities, is that Orlando is an hour away from Orlando.
Next year is in Houston, and much of Houston is over an hour from Houston.
Right. But still, that's a case of, that's convenient. And I can certainly get there without a problem. I mean, if I wanted to, I could commute from home, but I don't want to. I'll get a hotel room there. But that's super easy. I'll definitely be there. As for the others, I don't know. We got to see how I'm feeling.
We'll see if we can work Oddball's Airbnb magic, because the place we had at Atlanta was top notch. It was a really, really nice place, but also we walked there every morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was super nice.
Yeah. So there's a level of delicious irony here, because I'm trying to remember which NRA meeting it was, and I think it was 2018 when I was called in to give a speech and basically be, present, and in their mind I was welcomed into the inner circle. There was someone, and I don't remember who, but I think he was an NRA director, and he was talking about John when he was blogging about the various NRA travails, and he said, that blogger, John Richardson, and he said it with such venom. Like, how dare this man be talking about us and digging into things, the Wayne LaPierre business. And I was just thinking, if they hate him that much, he's got to be onto something.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that guy is today, but if he only knew, and I hope he does. I'd love to see what his reaction is. Yeah, that guy that you hated, yeah, he was elected, and now he's on the board.
I mean, a lot has changed. Yeah, that had to have been either 2016 or 2017 or 2018, and then 2019, Ollie North staged a coup against Wayne LaPierre that probably would have won, but Wayne LaPierre pulled some shenanigans because, again, I always like to point out, there was a unanimous vote against the no confidence, the vote of no confidence against Wayne LaPierre, and yet several people stepped up and said, no, I voted for it. So there was definitely some shady business going on, and then there was COVID, and the NRA was struggling to survive, and we didn't know if they were going to live. And there's still a lot to happen with the NRA, but I'm definitely getting some good vibes that it is recovering and will hopefully soon be the NRA that we all want.
Yeah, I mean, when he was listing out the composition of reform members on these key committees, my jaw was progressively dropping. And so, yeah, that is a significant change. And so that is restoring a lot of my confidence about NRA.
Yeah, we're literally witnessing something akin to the Cincinnati Revolt, I think.
Although I want to say that the Cincinnati Revolt, which happened before my time, that was just, bam and done. This one was done in much slower motion.
Yeah, well, it needed to be because, again,
because right after the Cincinnati Revolution, the powers that be made it impossible to have another Cincinnati Revolution.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. That's exactly it. They pulled the ladder up after they climbed up. So yeah, the hopefully also that the reformers here will have that Thomas Jefferson, the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of patriots and tyrants, noting that he was referring to himself when he said tyrants, because he was terrified that once he got into power, that the power would go to his head, and because he knew that his head was only tenuously attached to his body, that maybe he shouldn't let the power go to his head.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know who has a good head on their shoulders, Aaron?
Our listeners.
Our listeners. We want to thank you, each and every one. But a very special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. To be a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like the hilarious blooper reels, the ACB film tracks, and the ACB mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I get a blog. It's weerdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
He went to the NRA annual meeting, and I didn't. Our tolerance for Atlanta is assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.